Hey guys, I'm Mark,
I'm Alen.
and welcome to another episode of The Next Man Up. Well, here we are again, listeners, excited that you have joined us for another episode and thankful that you are journeying with us along this path of raising up the next generation of men of faith and character. We've got a fun, engaging topic today around masculinity and the different masks that men tend to wear.
Yeah.
In this context of masculinity. So that's what we're teeing up today. Looking forward to getting to that and looking forward to doing that with my colleague and friend, Alen. Good to see you again.
Say it.
Eyeballs on you, man. Bruh.
Good there you go.
Good to see you, bruh.
Yeah, you too, man.
So listeners, I was asking if it was okay to say that. Like, am I breaking some cultural rules by saying bruh? And Alan's like, man, you're good. So
you're fine.
So
man.
Here it is. Good to see you, bruh.
Good to see you too, bruh. Dude, I wanted to bring something up, man. Before we get started, I noticed that we end every podcast by saying adios.
Yeah.
Like do you have like a
so
connection?
That's kind of my thing.
Is that your thing?
Yeah. So I have a long history with Spanish.
Okay.
I took 4 years in high school and really enjoyed the language, so much so that I did another 4 years in college and actually have a minor in Spanish. Now, I never intended to teach with it. It was never like this ministry thing where I'm going overseas. I have traveled in Central and South America, and I've used the language. And 20 plus years after college, I'm still surprised at how much I retain. Like, the older we get, the more we feel like I just can't remember things.
Oh, absolutely.
My experience has been completely different with Spanish. Oh, wow. I am shocked at how much I do remember. Now, I have lost a lot. I was probably a couple weeks of immersion away from being pretty fluent. Way back in the day. I'm nowhere near that. I'm like at toddler level now. But I can say just about anything I want to say. It may be a long way around it and with words that are a little awkward, but I can get my meaning across.
That's awesome, man.
Still today, and I barely ever use it.
That's awesome.
So Spanish has had a long draw for me.
Okay.
And I will often sign emails, adios or gracias or...
literally, he texts me people and he will say, amigo.
Yes, like, amigo.
Like, huh?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it was just this thing that I started doing kind of unconscious. And I think you've now picked up on it.
And just something that you do. And I noticed myself just following along. Just like you say adios. I'm like, adios. Why did I say adios?
Oh, that's funny. Well, in all the feedback that we've gotten, no one has ever complained that I'm dropping one Spanish greeting or goodbye at the end of the episodes.
Yeah,
so.
I like it. I just realized it was like, I gotta ask him about that, man.
Why do we do that?
Why do we do what we do? That's another good podcast.
That is a good. It makes me think of
why we do what we do.
Yes, it makes me think of a story of a daughter, an adult daughter, who, in the process of baking a ham, she would cut the ends off of the ham and then stick it in the oven and bake it. And her child asked her, "Mom, why do you do that?" And she's like, "I don't know. My mom did it." So eventually. They got back to the original source for that was the oven was too small.
That's what I was just thinking.
They had to trim the ham in order to fit it. But generations later they're still
cutting.
They're still doing it. Why do we do it?
Right?
Yeah.
Oh man, helping your kid figure out what makes him tick.
Yeah.
To, Dad, why do we do that? Why do we sing the same song every family vacation?
It's a dangerous question.
Yeah, man.
It's a dangerous question.
I know, but it's
a good one.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that with us, by the way, Mark.
Yes.
Letting us in your inner man.
So that's why I do it. Okay. Like, you can come up with your own reason.
I have I took no Spanish at all. Like, although I normally go to Costa Rica once a year. And when I was a youth pastor, I took kids to Mexico and Costa Rica a lot. I am not fluent in Spanish. That's why I stick the guide really close to me.
Yep.
And whatnot.
Yep.
but like I love like Latin culture. I just beautiful people, you know, inside and out, and but yet I struggle with the language. I took French.
Well, that makes more sense given your heritage.
Yeah, you know, Haitian. But ask me to speak any lick of it right now. Gun to the head, I'd die. You know, it just wouldn't. I didn't retain well. 4 years of French, I didn't retain well. But I brought that up because I was just curious.
Yeah,
like why you were saying it.
So
I don't know if like there was a part of you, maybe you found out like, you know, 23andMe and you're like 2% like Spanish, or
that would be cool.
Like
I don't think that's true, but maybe Spaniard. Certainly not Hispanic.
Yeah, I just wondering, man.
Yeah,
I've heard lily white folks come up to me and say like, "Hey, I just found out I'm like a 0.05% like Aborigine." And I'm like, "That's great."
Okay, what are you gonna do?
What are you
gonna
do with that?
Yeah,
you know? That's awesome, man. Thanks for indulging me.
Oh, that was a fun question.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
What's going on today, man?
So, do you know that we often wear masks?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Halloween.
Yeah. And beyond that, and I'm not talking about the theater masks or the painted on masks. You know, like sometimes young girls, teenage girls will wear their hair down, covering their face as kind of a mask. I'm talking about the masks that we wear as men, which we think represent our manhood, or ascribe to us manhood or masculinity. And so that's the topic that we're going to dive into today. So the inspiration for this was a book that I recently read by the same name, or by the name of The Mask of Masculinity. It's written by Lewis Howes, who, by the way, I didn't really know this, but he's a local Central Ohio product a number of years ago and has done lots of different things. I think he's probably most known currently for his podcast, The School of Greatness. But he wrote this book called The Mask of Masculinity, which really was a synthesis of his own experiences and doing some deep reflection on his pursuits and what he's trying to accomplish, what he was looking for in those pursuits, and what he ultimately discovered, you know, because they weren't the same thing. And then all of the successful or prominent or popular people that he's had on his show, his podcast show, he's been able to piece together the 9 different masks that he says men tend to wear on a regular basis. Okay. And not necessarily all men, all masks, but all men struggle with one of these 9 masks is what he says. And so the 9, I'll just rip them off here. Right. It's stoic or stoicism.
Okay.
It's the athlete, meaning that I have to show my athletic prowess in order to demonstrate or prove my manhood. The material mask, which is the things I own, represent manhood. The sexual mask, the aggressive mask, the joker mask, which is if I make other people laugh, then that gives me value and proves my worth as a man. Or it kind of deflects away from some of the hollowness inside of my own life. The invincible mask, I can do everything. Sometimes we might look at teenage boys or college age boys and think, oh my gosh, what are they doing? But it's just this idea of invincibility proves my manhood. And then the last 2 are the know-it-all and the alpha. So stoic, athlete, material, sexual, aggressive, joker, invincible, know-it-all, and alpha. So these are the 9 masks that he says men struggle with in their adult life or in their pre-adult into adult life. And so I just one other thought. I enjoyed the book. It was a good book, a lot of good insight. There were some things I just completely disagreed with.
Sure.
And some things I was like, I'm not sure, I don't know about that. But I think he's nailed it in the sense that we men hide behind these masks, thinking they represent our masculinity, and all the while, it's like trying to feed something. Let me say it this way: the drug addict is never content. There's always something more. There's always the bigger hit, the better hit, the longer I can stay high, right? Like the man that is looking for masculinity in any or all of these masks is ultimately going to be empty because it's not going to satisfy that inner desire. So anyway, that was the book. These are the 9 masks. I thought we could just kind of tease this out and even share some of our own experiences of how we relate to this.
I wonder, does he go into questioning why the mask? Like, why would someone wear a mask?
Yeah, I think that kind of questioning is maybe an underlying theme all throughout, but not in the sense of like a psychoanalysis or the scientific research per se. Now, it's well researched, and he quotes a lot of different things, proving that men struggle with this. You know, for example, the Stoicism, right? There's information in that chapter about how men struggle with revealing their emotions, and how statistically, scientifically, we perceive that as weakness and vulnerability, and we can't show that, things that we've talked about here before. It's less though about what is the underlying need for us, and more about, if you're pursuing masculinity and manhood behind these masks, you're not going to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah,
no, totally. I immediately go there.
Yeah.
I want to know why. And so as I've identified my mask, I've also asked the question, well, why did I pick that one versus another one?
Yeah.
And digging into that is interesting because it helps. As I've dug into that, I've also come to a place where I go, oh, yeah, now I know why. And it helps me not wear that mask a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not saying because I say it that way because, dude, there's days I still struggle with wearing a mask.
Oh, yeah, me too.
You know what I'm saying? And different ones. But it becomes easier to unmask. You know what I mean? It becomes easier not to pick up a mask and wear it that day, as I've figured those things out.
Yeah.
And I press into those things. So I was wondering if the book actually pressed into that, because that would be quite cool to talk about as well.
That's an interesting question. I might need to go back and reread it from that context.
Or you can just read it yourself.
Well, you could do that too. But as I was going through this, I was thinking more about, okay, he's identifying a mask, and here's an interesting quote or story like that. That's how I was consuming it. Yeah. I wasn't entirely consuming it from the standpoint of why. I mean, he certainly gets at the same types of things that we get at, which is you've got to go inside.
Yeah.
You've got to do some self-reflection. You've got to ask the question why, or maybe say it a different way. Where is this coming from?
Yeah.
What is the need that I'm trying to get met? What is the feeling that I'm trying to avoid? What is the underlying insecurity or the thought that's creating all of this?
Yeah.
That's hard work, man.
Yeah, it is, man.
It's hard work.
A lifetime of work.
And when you don't do that hard work, you end up just throwing on a mask because it's quote unquote easier to do that.
Yes, sir.
But it's certainly not better.
Yeah. Interesting. This, and I'm certain that this list of 9 are not just, like you said, they're not just, I guess, what am I trying to say? Like, these are the masks and that's it. Like, I'm pretty sure that he's probably talking about there's variations of these masks.
Sure.
As well. Because even as you're reading them off and I'm thinking about myself, I'm going, oh, shoot, I can see I see every mask on, but I see variations as well.
Yeah.
And whatnot. And that's good to know as well. Those who are listening, like these masks that we're talking about, of masculinity, like there's variations of these things, and so it may not look the same for you as it does for me or for Mark or for anybody else around you, but the origin point is still the same, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
And such, and those are things to pay attention to as well.
I think one of the things that I appreciated about this and other material like this is it's not written from the faith perspective. So those of us that have been in the church or Jesus followers for any number of years or any period of time, any length of time, some of these concepts are not as new and as radical as they are for people that don't have that biblical training, right? Like Paul talks about managing your emotions and capturing your thoughts. And Jesus was the ultimate example of what it means to be strong and powerful and yet a servant and humble and leading from a place of love and security in his identity. So some of this isn't as big a leap as it is for those that don't have that learning, that tradition to draw upon. And here's a guy who does not profess to be a Jesus follower. And he's coming to the same conclusion that there is a better way than how culturally, societally we are living as males. There's a better way. And it requires us to peel off this mask and to get inside our head, get inside our hearts, and do some harder work.
Yeah.
It's too easy. It's just too easy to throw the mask on and say, oh, well, my material possessions qualify me as a man. Yeah. Well, guess what? There's always a bigger boat.
Agreed.
You know?
Yep.
Somebody's always got more than you. So does that mean, like, at what point do you reach that manhood status? It's elusive.
Yeah.
That's too easy. There's a harder, there's a better way. Anyway, what I'm appreciating is now we've got, quote unquote, the world, if you will, that is recognizing that there is a better way for men to exist and for men to show up. And I think it just, shame on us as believers for not leading that conversation.
I know.
In some respects.
Yeah.
But then also, here's the moment.
Yeah.
Here is the moment culturally for us to be engaged in this conversation, saying the same things, and when appropriate, incorporating a Jesus message into it as well. Like,
sure.
There's a reason why it's better, because we were designed to be a different way. We weren't designed to wear these masks.
Not be ourselves. Good point.
Does that make sense?
No, totally, man. I'm loving this. This is good. This makes a lot of sense.
You know, the two that I think I identified with most or resonated with, let me say it differently, the two that I struggle with the most of the masks that he identified are this stoic mask and the know-it-all mask. And for two different reasons, I think. Like part of who I am is my personality wiring. And I know I tend toward left brain and rational and analytical and less of the spontaneous and outgoing and emotional. But there is still a consistent struggle in me to release emotion in like a social setting, even exuberance. Now, when I'm cheering for my favorite team, then I'll let go. But generally, I'm just kind of like
reserved, chill.
I'm reserved and chill and even keel. And sometimes people are like, "Oh man, you're so chill, you're so relaxed," which is true most of the time. But the tension in me is to let that go. You know, when it's appropriate to be able to let it go. It was on this in this context on an episode a while back, where I was talking about dropping Jacob off at college. and we're in the parking lot, and he's crying, and mom is crying, and I could, in that moment I could, and I chose not to. And I rationalized it as, there's going to be another 30 minutes. If I let the dam burst, it's going to be another 30 minutes. I got a long day's drive ahead of me, right? I'm just not going to do it. But I'd be lying if I said that was the complete reason.
Sure.
The underlying that was this sense of, I need to keep it together. I need to be in control. And I need to not show my sadness or my negative emotion in this context.
Yeah.
And I don't think I really, I don't know. It took me a while to even process that, right? Because I was sad, and the wife knew it, and the son knew it. But in that moment, I'm like, I'm not going to let it go.
Yeah, man.
I'm not going to let it go. Now, was that the right choice? Should I have made a different choice? I don't know. Maybe in a different context, I'll be more aware and can choose versus maybe feeling like I'm in default mode. But this stoicism thing, it's a real struggle for me. And the other one is just this idea of, I need to have the answer. Yeah. And if I don't have the answer, I don't want you to know that I don't have the answer. Now, I'm not that guy that walks into the room and has to have everybody know and think and believe that I'm the smartest one in the room. But I tend toward, if I don't know the answer, I'm not going to speak up because I don't want to look stupid.
Yep.
I don't want the embarrassment of this feeling, this embarrassment of not knowing, and now it's not all the time, but truth be told, like I will keep my mouth shut in certain settings because I feel like, I'm less than. Like everybody else knows this. How is it that I don't know? Like, so this is kind of you were talking about that spectrum or a variation of the know-it-all, especially in the setting where I feel like everybody knows what is being talked about. There. I'm the only one.
I've been there. I wish this was a video podcast because I normally tend to, yes. Tell me more.
Yeah. So for the listeners, there's a hand stroking the chin, a very pensive look. You could picture him with like a smoking jacket and a pipe.
But it's all diversion. It's all because I don't know what you're talking about, but I don't want to look dumb.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to think that I'm dumb.
See, even in this context, right?
So I'm just going to go, okay, yeah. Really? Tell me more.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that from? Oh, all right, really? It's a mask. It's a mask.
Yeah.
So I get it, man.
Yeah.
Mine. I think the first one that jumps off is Invincible. And maybe where it may be like a knowledge thing. For some with the know-it-all, mine is I have it all together. Nothing hurts me. And so, hey, how you doing? I'm great. Yep. And I've researched, like, at least myself, like, man, I say that a lot. But the truth is like I'm putting on a mask because I don't want you to know what's really going on behind these walls.
Right.
Because if you do know, then that means that you have something on me. And how can I trust you to have something on me?
So it's a weakness.
It's a weakness thing. Yeah. It really is, man. And so that mask has been worn a lot. And honestly, I look at my past and I go, of course that's one of my masks. From a lot of the trauma that I went through as a kid, a lot of the brokenness, and being seen as someone who should be a charity case sometimes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was no, I don't want that anymore. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fake it. Not until I make it. I'm just going to fake it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no matter what circumstance I am, and the picture that I get in my head is, the Black Hawk Down movie.
Yep.
They're all going back in, and one guy's getting ready. They come back in and getting re-ammunitioned up and refueled up so they didn't go back out again. And there's a guy and he's just bleeding, and he's got a cast on and whatever. And they're no, you're going to stay here. He's like, no, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm good. It's like, really? You got a cast on. You're bleeding. It looks like you got hurt. It's like, no, I'm good. And he just rips the cast off and he hops on. And it's like, that's me with the mask. Like, I just go, I'm good. I'm okay. But the truth is, there's probably something going on. But if I let you in, that means that I'm less of a man. You see how less of a man I am.
Yeah.
Which isn't true. You know, it has nothing to deal with my manhood, and me being a man. But it's a mask that like I struggle with wearing because that's what I've grown up with.
So it makes me think of the concept of identity, you know, and when you place your identity in something that can be removed, either by yourself or by somebody else, it's like quicksand, you know.
Yeah.
It's just creates this insecurity. So if in your context, if your manhood is wrapped up in being able to do it all and to do it all great and prove everybody wrong, if you ever have a hiccup in that context,
oh my gosh,
then it's like, you know, the house of cards crumbles, right?
House of Cards,
Yeah,
burning.
yeah, and it may or may not be what you've experienced, but if you've placed your, let's just call it your manhood identity in your ability to achieve greatness or success or to be invincible, and something happens, then guess what? Your manhood goes with it.
Yeah.
In that construct. Now, I don't agree that that's true.
No, not.
But that's how we act, right? Like
exactly. And
somehow,
why wear the mask,
right?
You know,
that's right.
Well, one reason why someone can wear the mask of, like, you know, invincibility,
right?
You know, and I think about it, man. Like a lot of movies I've watched of action movies portray that.
Yes.
Don't they? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like
all superhero movies.
Like, there is nothing wrong with you. Get your butt back up and into the game.
Man
Get
up
and go fight.
Toughen up.
Like, you know, like, really, it's you ever seen Mighty Python Holy Grail?
A long time ago, and it was like 2 hours that I'll never get back.
So this guy is, just imagine this like corny guy facing a knight, and he's like, I'll take you on, come on. And the knight like cuts off an arm, and he goes, I still got another arm, come at me. And he cuts off his arm. He's down to, like, you know, I think at one point it was just his head, if I can remember right, and he's still talking.
Is that when he says, like, it's only a flesh wound?
Yeah, it's only a flesh wound. That was it. That was the line.
Yeah.
It's only a flesh wound. And I'm like, man, what a sad way to live.
Yeah.
You know, like, as I look back at my past in those moments where I was wearing a mask, like, I want to go back. You can't. But I want to go back and just hug that guy and go, man, dude, you can take that off.
Yeah,
man.
it's okay.
It's okay. That has nothing to do with, like, you being a man. Matter of fact, that's the man you don't want to be.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, soft moment there.
Yeah, I mean, I can feel even right now some emotion welling up in me. Like, it's just, you don't have to live that way. No. And yet the message of the world, the message of media, the message often of our own dads is, here is the bar, and if you don't live up to it, you are less than. Yeah. And so we put on these masks. Or like we've talked about before, if dads don't show their sons the way, they'll figure out another way. Mm-hmm. So then it takes on the football player on the gridiron, where all of his identity, right, his masculine is wrapped up in how hard he can hit or how far he can carry the ball, or the college guy who's trying to prove who he is by how many women he can bed. You know, like, it's just,
Mask after mask after mask.
Mask after mask after mask. And the longer we sit in those masks, the more they get adhered to our face and the harder it is to take off. But that's like that's the hard work, but that's the good work.
The good work, right? And so I guess for me is my question is like what do I do? Like, 'cause, like, you know, these masks that we wear can be damaging.
They can.
You know?
Yeah.
I venture to say they are. You know, depending on how your perspective and what you're looking at, what lens or whatever. But, you know, I think the first thing to do, I think, is to identify it.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
just creating awareness,
yeah, man,
right?
Like getting awareness of what mask you're actually wearing and dive into that.
Yep.
You know, dive into that. I think for me personally, the more I've gotten to know who I am and how I do things, what makes me roll, I've learned my mask as I've like dug into that. And dude, it's been hard work because it's asking, it's demanding that you be real with yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, dude, I don't act invincible.
Right.
Oh, no, dude, no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
It's literal and figurative nakedness in front of the mirror, and
who wants that?
Not turning away.
Yeah, who wants that?
Right?
You know, I would say a person who wants that is willing to face ugly truths sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, and I think for me personally, as I've looked at some ugly truths about myself, it's helped me to be real with myself to go, no, I want to love myself. I don't need to wear this mask. I want to love the people around me and let them in. And so I need to take this mask off. You know what I'm saying? And if you can do that, friends, it's freeing. It's liberty.
It is. And I think another suggestion in the context of how, right?
Yeah.
Is to lean into somebody that you trust. Another male friend, it could be a mentor, it could be a pastor, it could be a close friend. I'll plug my own profession. It could be a coach, you know, that helps in this context. But you don't have to do it alone. In fact, it's better if you don't. It's better if you have a sidekick or a partner or somebody that can be real with you.
You could.
You can.
But it's so much easier when you have someone else with you.
It's harder to do it yourself. And I think you'll go farther, you know, if you are working with somebody. But it's got to be somebody that you can trust, and that you know has got your back and has got your best interest at heart, right? Because that's what we're afraid of, is revealing this vulnerability. And once that trust is broken, boy, it's hard to get back. But to your point, it's better to do it with somebody else and just take a risk, you know,
Agreed.
over a cup of coffee or lunch or during halftime, you know, like, hey man, I need some help. I'm struggling with this. I trust you and would appreciate your help. Who knows what a conversation like that could open up for you and for that other person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Man. Interesting.
Well, listeners, if you're interested in the book, once again, it's called The Mask of Masculinity. It's by Lewis Howes, Howes. It's a good read. We've just sort of scratched the surface on the different masks. But if you're interested, I'll put that in the show notes so that you can have access to it. But probably the bigger challenge is if you're wrestling with this, just sit in that, create some awareness for yourself, and begin to work through it. And we promise you will be better off as a result. It won't be easy, and it won't be necessarily quick, but it's a better road than hiding behind and living inside that mask.
Agreed, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing this topic up.
You're welcome, man. And we've come to the point now where we do what?
We say goodbye.
We say goodbye in Spanish. So with that, until next time, adios.
Adios, my friends.
Hey, listeners, thanks for journeying with us on this Next Man Up podcast. You know, we would love to hear from you. Maybe you have a question or an idea, perhaps a topic for us to consider. If that's you and you want to reach out to us, you can get us at feedback at thenextmanup.com. That's feedback at thenextmanup.com. Again, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we'll see you later.